Ever wondered how meat manages to stay fresh inside of a metal can for years without going bad? That's not just some factory trick, it's the result of a global industry moving over 54 million tons of canned meat every year, with billions of cans flying off the shelves from Asia to America. But how is it made so safely, so efficiently, and in such huge numbers without anything going wrong? Let's break it all down here from start to finish.
So easy nang buksan. Argentina corned beef. Now in easy open can. Timplang nakakagana sa bawat timpla. Oh, easy!
Canned meat didn't just show up one day as survival food. Its story goes way back to the early 1800s, when food preservation was one of the biggest challenges people faced. Back then, a French chef named Nicolas Appert figured out that sealing food in glass containers and heating it could keep it safe to eat for months. Not long after, a British inventor named Peter Durand took it a step further and started using tin-plated steel cans, which were lighter, stronger, and easier to transport. This simple change kicked off a whole new wave of food preservation. That breakthrough caught the attention of the military, and soon armies were carrying preserved food into battle. While canned meat originally gained global traction during the World Wars, in the Middle East its growth followed a different path. As urban areas expanded and lifestyles shifted, more people in countries like Saudi Arabia, Iran, and Turkey started relying on the convenient, shelf-stable options that suited their daily routines. But what is the process like? Before anything goes sealed inside a can, the process starts with selecting the right meat. Factories don't use scraps or leftovers. They use real cuts of beef, chicken, or even turkey, depending on the final product. The meat is brought in from approved suppliers and goes through strict quality checks to make sure that it's fresh and safe. This includes checking for things like color, smell, texture, and temperature. If anything's off, it's immediately rejected. Once approved, the meat is trimmed down to remove extra fat, bones, and anything that could mess with the meat's consistency. Some products, like canned luncheon meat or corned beef, need meat to be cut into specific sizes or ground into a uniform texture. From there, some types are sent straight to grinding, while others are marinated first. That marination step can last up to 2 days and includes a mix of salt, sugar, and preservatives like sodium nitrate and sometimes spices, depending on the flavor profile the company is going for. At this stage, the meat isn't cooked, but it's already being shaped to match what the final product will be. Everything is handled in a clean, temperature-controlled environment because keeping bacteria out is critical before the next phase begins. Now that the meat is cleaned, trimmed, and cut or ground just right, it's time for the flavor to kick in. But before we get into that, please leave a like and subscribe for more amazing videos like this one. Now, moving on. Factories don't just throw meat into a can and call it a day. They use industrial mixers to blend the meat with specific ingredients that give it the taste, texture, and the shelf life it's known for. Depending on the product, the mixture might include salt, curing agents like sodium nitrate, sugar, and spices. Some factories also use starches or binders to help the meat hold its shape during cooking. Every ingredient has a job to do. For example, curing salts don't just add flavor, they help preserve the meat and give it that familiar pink color that you see in things like corned beef or luncheon meat. What's really interesting is how carefully everything is measured. Too much salt or curing agent can throw off the taste or even safety of the product. That's why modern canned meat production is tightly controlled, with recipes tested over and over in labs before anything reaches the factory floor. Once everything is thoroughly mixed and evenly blended, the meat paste is ready to be portioned into cans. This is where the production line really gets moving. The meat is funneled into large stainless steel hoppers and fed into high-speed filling equipment. These machines are designed to portion the exact amount of meat into each can with barely any waste or no human contact. Everything is automated for hygiene and accuracy. The filling process isn't just about speed, it's also about consistency. Every can needs to have the same weight, the same density, and the right amount of headspace. That small space at the top isn't a mistake. It's left there on purpose so the contents can expand during cooking without breaking the seal. In some facilities, vacuum filling systems are used to remove excess air while the meat is being packed. This step helps prevent spoilage and keeps the bacteria from having any room to grow. Once each can is filled and adjusted to spec, it's moved along the belt to the sealing station. This part of the line keeps running with clockwork precision because any slowdowns can lead to delays or contamination risks. At this stage, the meat is still raw, but is safely packed and ready for one of the most intense stages of the process: sealing and sterilization. You see, every can moves onto a sealing machine that applies a metal lid and locks it down using a process called double seaming. It's not just a regular lid closure. This method involves tightly folding the edge of the lid and the body of the can together to create a strong, airtight seal. That seal is critical. If even one can isn't sealed properly, the entire batch can be at risk of contamination. Before the seal is locked, the cans are usually passed through a steam tunnel or a heat chamber. This heats up the contents and forces out any remaining air inside. That's called exhausting, and it helps create a vacuum seal once the lid is in place. Removing air from the can lowers the chances of spoilage and keeps any bacteria from multiplying. The sealing machines operate in a sterile environment to prevent any external particles from getting into the can. Inspectors or automated sensors monitor the seam to make sure that it's perfectly formed. Any dented or faulty cans are pulled off the line immediately. At this point, the meat is still uncooked inside the can, but now that it's sealed shut and vacuum tight, it's ready to head into one of the most important phases. This part doesn't happen in a regular oven. The cans are loaded into giant pressure chambers called retorts. These are industrial machines that are built to handle extreme heat and pressure. Once inside, the cans are exposed to temperatures as high as 130 degrees Celsius, all while under controlled pressure to keep the cans from bursting. The goal here is to kill off any harmful bacteria, especially dangerous ones like Clostridium botulinum. That's the bacteria that causes botulism, and it can only be destroyed at very high temperatures. The entire cooking time is carefully calculated depending on the size of the can and the type of meat inside. If the heat doesn't reach the center of the can long enough, it won't be safe. While the meat is cooking, it's also being preserved. The sterilization process is what gives the canned meat such a long shelf life. There are no shortcuts here. Everything is monitored, from temperature to pressure to timing, because any small mistake can lead to spoilage or worse. Once the cooking cycle is complete, the cans are still extremely hot, and they can't move to the next step until they're cooled down quickly and safely. That cooling phase is next, and it's just as important as the heat. This step is all about control. Factories use high-powered water sprays or immerse the cans in cool water to bring the temperature down as quickly as possible. Cooling them down too slowly could mess with the texture or create safety risks, so the timing is dialed in perfectly. Once cooled, the cans move on to the next critical checkpoint: inspection. Every can is examined, either by workers or automated systems, to make sure that it meets safety standards. If a can looks too swollen, dented, or damaged in any way, it's removed from the line immediately. Even a small dent near the seal can be a red flag. Many factories also do random checks by cutting open some of the cans and testing the contents. They check for temperature consistency, texture, and the quality of the seal. This step helps confirm that the cooking process worked as planned so no bacteria slip through. The inspection process is strict for a reason. Canned meat is made to last for years, and any compromise in safety could lead to major issues. Once everything clears quality control, the cans are finally ready for their final transformation. Labels aren't just for branding. They carry important details like ingredients, nutrition facts, expiration dates, and batch numbers. Everything has to be clear and accurate. These machines wrap the label around the can with perfect alignment, so nothing is crooked or misprinted. In most factories, they also use a digital system that prints traceable codes onto the cans so that each can be tracked all the way back to the exact day it was made. Once labeled, the cans are automatically sorted into larger cartons or trays, depending on where they're headed: supermarkets, warehouses, or export containers. These packages are then shrink-wrapped or taped shut and stacked onto pallets ready for shipping. So now that you know how a slab of raw meat turns into a shelf-stable survival champ, here's a question for you. If canned meat can last for years without a fridge, what do you think is the next food to get that forever treatment? Freeze-dried sushi? Shelf-stable pizza? Let us know your wildest guess in the comments.